This episode of the Gamerheads podcast is brought to you by Seven Bridges Premium Gourmet Yum Yum Sauce. Enhance every bite with our savory blends of flavors, perfect for meats, vegetables, and crispy treats. Whether you're dipping, drizzling, marinating, grilling, roasting, or snacking, Seven Bridges Yum Yum Sauce takes your culinary experience to the next level. Get yours today and make every meal a gourmet delight.
Hi, I'm Celia Schilling from Yacht Club Games.
Hey, this is James from Megacat Studios.
Hey folks, this is Matt, aka Stormageddon from Reignite and the Fun and Games podcast.
This is Stephanie from the Boss Rush podcast and the Boss Rush Network.
Hey, this is Mark and Keon from Bunte Avond.
Hey, this is Sebastian with the ProNerdReport.com and the Single Player Experience podcast.
Hi, this is Chris.
Mike.
And Garrett from Daylight Basement Studio.
Hey, this is Baron J67 from Level 1 Gaming.
Hi, I'm Jacob McCourt from the Left Behind Game Club, Crossplay Conversations, and Video Game Trivia.
Hey, this is Todd Mitchell from Code Right Play.
Salutations, this is Mike Carroll from Stroll Art.
Hey, this is Jeff Moonen from Fun and Games Podcast.
What's good, y'all? This is Adam from Respawn Aimfire.
Hey, this is Patrick from the Backlog Odyssey.
Hey, this is Rune from Runic Codes.
Hi, this is Andrew from Spalato Bros.
Hi everyone, Jill Grote here from the Indie Informer.
Hello, this is the Crypt Master, and you're listening to Roger Reichardt. You're listening to Roger on the Gamerheads podcast.
And welcome to another episode of the Gamerheads podcast. My name is Roger. This week, I have a very special guest. I have a returning guest, a multi-award-winning video game composer who has helped ship 25 plus games, Chase Bethea. Thank you so much for joining me, coming back on the show.
Roger, thank you so much for having me back. It is an honor. It is a joy. It is a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun because before we were recording, we just caught up, and it's just, I don't know, it's just fun talking with you. I just enjoy having you on the show and just chatting with you as a friend. So yeah, it's a real joy having you on the show. I have a lot of questions. You saw my questions. You know I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, I got questions. Questions are good. Good questions.
But if this is the first time anyone's listened to this podcast and maybe they haven't heard our interview from earlier in the year,
go check it out.
Yeah, first of all, go check it out, right? Yeah, maybe just stop this one and go back to listen to the other one. But if you're short on time and you're just no, I just want to listen to this one. Chase, tell us a little bit about yourself before, if this is the first time anybody's heard the podcast and heard anything about you.
Absolutely. Well, hi, Gamerheads. I'm multi-award-winning video game composer Chase Bethea. I've been working in the industry, I'm going to say 14 years because next month is my 14th year anniversary. Wow. So we're going to jump into that. I usually say I got to do my new day count. And I usually say it's 4,745 days. So now we got to do a new day count.
I'm going to do that for the Gamerheads podcast. I got to keep track of how many days we've been on.
You should. Yeah. You should. Yeah. You should. I will tell you why after the recording why I do that. But yeah, it has been a long time. Yeah. And so I've shipped over, it'll be close to 30 games I think next year officially. Wow. I would have done 5 in 2 years. I just actually did an update setting something up. And that's not even the ones that haven't come out that I can't talk about yet. But overall, it's been cool. So that's and I also gave about 55 talks in 2.5 years, talking about from my behind the scenes work of how I write music for games to a topic that we're probably going to be talking about with one of your questions, to the breakdown of dynamic music design that I do with game composition, and many other topics in terms that encompass the industry and game music itself.
Yeah. I know that you've been very busy. You also, some of your music has been featured at different events as well. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I am fortunate to have my work being performed live, and I've been getting that done. If it's not myself, I perform live in Vegas, and it's acoustic, more performance of piano rendition from the game Star_School for Wishes, which is a game that will be coming out next year, and also a different game, Sunken Stones, which is performed by the Virtual Video Game Orchestra at MagWest this year. And I'm also going to be a returning special guest, celebrity guest at MagFest next year. So hopefully maybe the ground music will be performed, not a ground zero, but a ground. We'll see how that kind of goes. If not, I'll mostly be on panels and talking about retro gaming and things like that too. And I'm looking to amplify those live performances in some form or fashion as long as I have the energy to do so.
Yeah. That's so amazing to me to think about, having your music performed by an orchestra. Like, that must be so amazing, and just so, like, first of all, just like how amazing that is, but then to think about like having an orchestra perform your music, and I was watching a couple videos of the orchestra playing, and they turn to you and you're like, yeah, that was good. Like, like like, what is that feeling like when you hear an orchestra play your music?
It's a really cool feeling. I actually just released the official video of that MagWest performance on my YouTube channel yesterday. So, and it's doing quite well for not doing the extra hard push that I typically would do for promotion, because I'm so tuckered right now. But excuse me, from a small inside to hopefully maybe a later video. If I don't do that video, I'm happy to share it with you as an exclusive, which is I learned a lot the second time around. I conducted the piece last year with the Virtual Video Game Orchestra, and then the year before they performed the Star_School for Which as well. But last year I did a smaller ensemble with Deity Quest. And then when I worked with the Helix Collective, which was a small ensemble that performed my music not once but twice, last year was the first appearance of it. And then this year was the second. And it was based off of an idea that I gave them to perform video game music. So I was the brainchild of that ensemble for Helix Collective. But what I learned in the Virtual Video Game Orchestra for the different pieces that, and I mentioned this, is that I wrote the piece Pugnacity in Point Royale, which is the game developed by Sprite Ranch. It's called Sunken Stones. And it's kind of alluding to one of the questions you were talking about, like the Caribbean.
Yeah.
But it has pirates, but it's not Pirates of the Caribbean. I wrote it in 6/4 with time signature. And so if you're not familiar, 6/4 is, I'm doing a conducting thing. And then here, like, it is not common for performers to perform that in that time. I didn't know. So when I wrote the piece and you listen to it on the Bandcamp, it sounds great. It sounds really good.
Yeah.
But they got to feel the pulse of what that rhythm is, and it changes texture and timbre, and I have to keep the time. And so you have to have some good amount of rehearsals. I knew the music, but they needed to know the music, and they need to know it with me. And I had to just jump in, and I got 2 rehearsals down to get it to a decent performance standard. And so it felt good once everyone locks in. But that first one, whoo, it's like, okay. And I used to be a conductor's assistant in my early years of going through the process. And so I conducted this very small ensemble, and I had a good amount of rehearsals. And I also learned from the conductor who had the symphony orchestra and the community orchestra. But he did the normal repertoire of the classical music, and never performed their own work. And so, it was a learning experience, because this with the community orchestra, you're not with them, and I'm going in cold. They don't really, they know of me. They don't know me. They don't know how this is. They kind of played it separately, and I've got to just play Elmer's Glue really fast.
That's awesome. I mean, but just like how exciting that must be, that when it all comes together and standing up there and hearing your music playing back.
When it comes to conducting, I don't ever really want to conduct it. I usually want to just be in the back and just absorb it, which is what happened the very first time with the orchestra, the very first year at MagWest that I did 3 years ago. But conducting, and what was the feeling? It's an out of body experience, really. It's a bit nerve wracking, because Roger, I gotta tell you, I only had 2 rehearsals, so I got in the day before from a plane, and was there on time at least for this one, and got with them, and then you're just up there, and they're like, "Yeah, you got like 2 minutes." And I'm thinking, it's like a 4-minute piece, so you have to know where the spots are, call it in, and then the next rehearsal was sound check, which means,
oh my gosh,
after sound check, people are coming in.
Oh my
to
gosh.
see the performance, so you do it
Oh my
again.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
When you talk about this feeling of thinking, it feels good, but you gotta feel good about the rehearsal to know you gotta feel good. So I think have you seen the video yet?
No, I haven't seen this newest.
I think you've seen the behind the scenes when I posted on the short, but the official video, I got like a 360 video and the video version of my camera and then MagWest camera. So it's a bit different perspectives. You can see me conducting, you can see the orchestra and things like that. But it feels good. I'm being on a tangent. It feels good once it locks in. Like I said, once it locks in, then you're like, okay, it's good. When people like it, I think that's when I understand, because I wrote it, and so I wrote it in solitude, and then it was arranged, and then I performed it like it grows and it grows and it grows into this thing where now the energy is being received. And if people enjoy it, that's when I feel good about it mostly. Like I like it, but I know that I hope other people like it too, right? It's supposed to be enjoyed sonically.
Yeah. Do they get an opportunity to, like, how soon do they get the musicians before like getting together?
The specifically with Virtual Video Game Orchestra, they got the music in a good amount of time. I think I would say within a month, which is a decent time. And what I will give them a good look on is that they had like this accountability channel, so people had to record to show that they were practicing, and to make sure that in every piece too. And I think I had like a video from one of the brass players came up to me at first. It was like, "Man, this is a great chart, man. This amazing." It was like, "Oh, cool, like thank you." And I remember seeing his accountability video, like he was into it, so I was thinking, okay, the musicians have to like what they play. A lot of people don't know that, and if you're not a musician, if you don't like, this is it's not even for me being a video game composer. It's really not. I've seen the Tchaikovsky pieces and the Brahms pieces being performed, and I see the looks on these musicians' faces, and I could tell who doesn't like playing it, but they're just playing. They're there because they want to play and stuff. But if they don't like what they're playing, it's not going to sound good, and that's very important. It's so important.
Yeah. And this is the difference between like being like technically sound, right, and having your heart in the music as well.
Yes. Yeah. Some people are just there to play, and some people are there to play. What is it? His name is Pedro, but everyone knows him as Flute Guy.
Yes.
So I met Pedro. I've seen him twice because I go to the National Association of Music Manufacturers, also known as NAM, and so I've run into him a couple times. I got a picture with him, and he's so nice. And he's so cool. But I know him as Pedro, but everyone's like Flute Guy. He's into
playing.
It. He's there to play.
He's playing. He's playing.
Everyone's there to play, but he's there to play.
Yes, he is. And it's funny because he's become a celebrity almost from that, right? The first performance I remember seeing, it was like, whoa, this is amazing. And now like the camera seems to like always catch him, right? Like always like
he knows when it's on too. He's just
he's going
crazy.
Yeah.
He's such a nice guy though. So big love to Pedro. He's so nice. He's really cool.
Nice.
He's expensive, so if you want to hire him, he told me straight up, and I'm like, okay. Get the money.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, this kind of ties into the next question that I have here for you. Then, writing music. This is something that I was just thinking about. Is it stressful for you, or is it relaxing when you are writing music?
No, it's not relaxing.
It
was relaxing in 2000 something. It was relaxing when I was in my adolescence. because it was a hobby. I was learning, and there was no pressure for things. And like I said, I'm 4,745 days plus in, and every time I'm trying to write above myself, and I want to do well for the project. What's good at the same time is like I'm being challenged in a way that I don't really understand that I'm being challenged. So when I'm working with Spy Wrench, I'm given these, write this bossa nova soundtrack, but it's supposed to kind of represent AI, but then it's supposed to be relaxing. But bossa nova doesn't really exist in game music, so make it happen. Oh, okay. I think I love it, but I've got to study now these things, and I've now pioneered in this area. Okay, well, remember there's this whole franchise called Pirates of the Caribbean, but it has nothing to do with Pirates in the Caribbean. We're actually making a game in the Caribbean. So write this. Okay. Well, then that doesn't exist in game music. And so now I've pioneered in that. And so it's not relaxing because I have to figure out what the foundation is from nothing, and I'm creating it myself. And then in a different project, now it's, okay, well, now we have a detective in the Caribbean, and there's no real detective Caribbean music. So now I've created Caribbean noir, and that's something new.
Yeah.
So it's just different, even on this other project I haven't announced yet. But now I have to somehow match the energy and the esteem of Koshiro-san and make it into a fantasy soundtrack in a way. And I'm thinking, okay, there's no pressure at all. There's no pressure. There's no pressure. I'm not even being hyperbolic. I'm not being facetious. It's just, just match that iconic soundtrack. You could do it, sure. So no, it's not relaxing by any means. I'm leveling it up. Game music in so many areas that it's taking longer, but it's taking longer for quality that I know people will enjoy for the next generation of game music enthusiasts like yourself and others that really appreciate it, and that's what I'm thankful for.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'll relax.
I mean,
when when someone has to write at my level for things like, how did he do this? We gotta I'll relax. I'll just be like, okay.
But will you though? I don't see this is we've known each other for a year now, and I think one thing that I've picked up from you is that you I think challenge yourself.
I
do you think that pressure is a little bit, I mean, sure, there's external pressures, but do you think a lot of the pressure comes internally because of, you are, I don't want to say perfectionist, but you're a professional, right? And I think that,
correct.
And I think that pressure, do you think that that's a little bit self-inflicted, I guess?
Absolutely. You said the exact thing of what it feels like, and it's not because I'm a perfectionist. I know when to stop. I know when it's good. I know when to submit it, and it's right, and it feels right, and it feels good. But I am a professional, and the professionalism in me has a lot of integrity and a lot of quality that I know is in me to put forth and to deliver. And with that, I have to measure myself accordingly, because I've learned not everybody's really deserving of that level of things because it's not reciprocated. And so I have to be careful of how much of that professionalism I give. Otherwise, it's not to say I can take back for it, but it's mostly just, where is the line, and knowing when that's solid for that it meets their expectations, not something that I'm killing myself over.
Yeah. What do you do to help you relax though when you're not writing music?
Nothing.
Do you color? Do you draw? Do you do other artistic stuff to kind of get you out of the mindset of music writing? No.
My last big push for everything I did this year is stopped in November. October was, I don't even remember October really, but I know that mostly things were when I thought things were packing up, then the projects were continuing on. I was thinking, oh, okay, but I had to push through them. And so that's when I was thinking, like, I really it said the same thing for a ground. And I like this when I was writing, it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea where it's coming from. I'm thankful it's still being produced. It's obviously there, but it's I do nothing if I'm trying to just relax. I literally have been in bed for them almost a couple months and still like writing, believe it or not, and because of the projects that I have to put forth, like the Caribbean Noir, the newest project that I'm on, things like that. But other stuff, no, I'm doing nothing, and that it's been good because it's the reset that I need to have in order to continue to put forth that professionalism that I know that I want to bring to the table, regardless of the measurements and the levels of things, because I know it's for me. I have to, when I listen back to it, I have to be happy and proud of that work years forward, like I have from the past 13 years. When I was celebrated for the UK Black Composers Month this year, first time on the calendar on October 4th, I listened to my entire discography. I just let it rip. I was thinking, and as I was going through it, it was another out of body experience, thinking, I wrote all of this, like from the beginning from 13 years ago up to the recent time of today. I mean, I've listened to my stuff that's not released, and I was thinking, wow, I wrote a lot. I wrote a lot. And it was cool to reflect on. And so I'm thinking, okay, I want the next 20 years or so that I'm still doing this to kind of be more and better and greater, and to show forth that type of professionalism that I've been putting in since day one.
Do you ever listen to your old music and think, first of all, like, wow, I can't believe I wrote that? And secondly, like, would you ever go back and say, I'll make some changes here and there to my music that I wrote earlier?
Right. So the first yes to the first question, I was saying, especially a few of them, when I go back and listen to a few, I'm thinking, oh man, wow, what was I doing? And some of them have memory imprints of different emotions that I know that are time capsules. And so I know what I was going through at the time, why I was going through it. And so I'm able to kind of dive into those memories. But some of them that don't have those, I'm listening to it. And I remember sometimes if I'll listen to a specific VGM radio and I'll hear two notes and I'm thinking, I wrote that. Or I'm thinking I'll think I wrote that, but it's mostly my brain saying this sounds familiar, and then I say I wrote that. And sometimes something will come on and I'm thinking, who's that? Oh, that's me. Oh yeah, wow. Yeah, that's Wild Stars. So it's just a little bit of both, whereas I'm still surprised, but I'm still I'm still thinking, oh, okay, yeah, you did do it. And I don't know, it's just an interesting shift. I did my first jingle for my dad's show, Smooth Jazz Cafe. He has it on Sundays. We hired a singer, and I had the singer on it. And so when he asked for it, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I just kind of played some chords, and I thought, okay, this works. And then I just kept adding little stuff and adding stuff. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have an intent. I was just, okay, I think this sounds good. Okay, this, okay, that. All right, I think that's fine. And then we hired the singer, and then it came together. And my dad asked, like, how's it coming? And then I called him, I played it. He's like, oh, that's amazing. And then my stepmom came on and she said, like, did you write that? And I almost said no.
Wow.
Because I just didn't, it didn't sound like something. It just, I guess it didn't sound like me, but I was thinking, but I did write it. I played guitar and I played bass line on it, like real bass. And I played, what else? A couple other things on there. I've orchestrated all this, but I actually played live guitar. I have a bass now. I played that, the bass line. And I was thinking, oh yeah, I guess I did write that. So it's just a little bit all over at this point now. So it's an interesting shift. I don't know what's going on. I just know that it's hard to believe that I'm writing at the level I'm writing at.
Yeah. It seems like the muses are are working their magic, I guess, right? So,
well, the muse unfortunately left. That's probably one of the things. The muse.
Sorry
The
to
muse.
hear that.
No, it's okay. It's all right. The muse has been gone for I think sometime around summer, but so whatever it is, as I guess I'm left with the gifts. A friend of mine said this: hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And so, yeah, I guess I'm on autopilot for hard work.
well, I mean, hopefully that lasts, because that's I'm amazed at how, like, I listened to our previous conversation before this interview again, and just to listen how your creative abilities and what you think about palettes and music palettes and sound palettes and stuff like that, it just blows my mind. And I have no idea how you do it. I have no idea.
My mom said that to me today. She was thinking, I don't know how you wrote what you wrote and stuff and things like too. When the very few people who, my mom has seen it. I used to stream on Twitch the process. I used to have the camera on and stuff. And someone else that was in my life got to see what, like, the end next to me process of how I'm doing it. And they're amazed. And all I'm thinking is, like I said, the hard work is on autopilot.
Yeah.
I'm just doing. And I'm still out of mind. Because when I used to write with intent and I had the structure and stuff, it was a different time. It was a different process. This was, let's say 6 years ago. Yeah, there was a way different type. But now I have to write it down, Roger. I actually wrote the creative process down because that's how much I don't understand what's going on.
Wow.
I had to write it down, and they're like 22 steps.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's yeah. It just blows my mind.
Thank you.
Yeah. Last time, this is the other reason I wanted to listen to this, because I knew we talked about this last time, but we didn't get to dive into it much. Last time you were on the show, we talked about writing music. You kind of talked about this for examples that don't exist, specifically around this pirate themed game that in the Caribbean, but not Pirates of the Caribbean. And they wanted to have but they wanted to have like this flair, right? But you said there's like no examples of that, and I wanted to dive into that a little bit more. How do you go about processing that when there's no examples, but yet you have to come up with the sound that you can't? I mean, there had to have been a sound, but yet you're trying to like find it, but there's really not a lot of examples out there.
Right. And so what I realized is that what I'm known for is the Swiss Army knives of video game composition is literally being the amalgamation of genres. So I am able to absorb many music genres in their own category, and I can conflate them. My ear will conflate them, and then because I know I have a strong sense of theory, music composition, etc., that's what comes out, and that's my gift. So in school, they teach you to copy, and there's the whole adage of good composers copy, great composers steal. So that's what they teach you in schools. We copied a lot of composers, but through the copying, what happens is that you're either going to be a great copy, and there are some AAA composers that I would name, but they know who they are, that have copied a John Williams, and now they're known as that to kind of be be a John Williams copy. They're not really having their own sound because they're in a specific franchise. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? They're making a great living. They obviously are happy. They continue to accept the work. Hopefully they're happy. I don't want to speak for them, but don't want to speak for them. I'm not them. But with copying, you're either going to go down the copy route, or you're going to end up creating your own sound, or you're going to end up becoming someone like me, which is a hybrid. And I can and we can copy, but what's a really good friend of mine told me a long time ago is that no one creates art the way that you do. And so even though if I copied something directly what it is, it'll never come out the same way that first the original came out. And so through that I'm able to create something new every time, because that's what happens. I'll take bits and pieces of something I heard here, maybe it was a lick, I'll change the lick, then I do the lick even, I want to say better, but I do it in a different variation, and then that's something there. And then from something other genre, I heard something, or mostly the journey that I've kind of been on is through instrument experimentation. And that's just, it's not, I don't want to make it sound like it's sound design. It's mostly, I have a xylophone, I have some mallets, I'm just going to bring out this inner child in me and play on the xylophone, or play on the bass, or play on the guitar. And something's going to come out of that, because that's what happened when we were children, is that experimentation. And when we did experiments, we made this, and look at this, mom, look at this, dad, look at this, whoever, like, this is what I made, and this is what came from it. And I realized some years ago that's what needs to continue to happen. And an online business mentor had said the key to art is curiosity. And that's what a lot of children have, but a lot of us who grow into adults forget to have mostly. So I come from the curiosity standpoint, and I come from the programming idea of what if. And with those together, I'm able to conflate all these other things, and then that's what I think comes about it. So the what ifs and the curiosity is what happens.
Yeah, I like that. And it's interesting that you say that, because we talked a little bit about this last time too, the curiosity piece. I think the other thing that kind of plays into that, and it's something that as adults we forget, is to allow yourself to make mistakes, because a lot of times something new or creative comes from those mistakes. And I call it falling forward, or failing fast and failing safe, right? Like, because a lot of times you're not given that creative ability to make mistakes. It's like, it has to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, like, because it has to be out the door, it has to be done, has to be polished, has to be quick. But without that curiosity, you also are not allowing yourself to make those mistakes, and then learning something new. Maybe you don't include it, but maybe you're like, oh, this is something new that I didn't know before because I made this mistake.
Absolutely. You have to, making mistakes is going to be the quickest teacher for you. And I don't think anything mostly ships in a perfect manner. There's going to be some imperfection, whether it's like immediately or down the line. So you'll be close to what you feel is perfect, but the mistakes is really that's where you're going to learn, and learn well and build upon that.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to ask about was when you're writing music, and this is something that I was thinking about the other day, and I thought this would be a good question for Chase. When you're writing music and you're thinking about, it's like writing music for video games, I think is so much different than writing music for, let's say, even a movie, because there's certain elements that could happen during the game that you're not expecting, like, because the player has some control over that, right? And I'm thinking of, like, when there's a transition between, like, an action scene, and then when it's not like action, when it's just like walking through the forest or walking through an area that's not, it's much more subtle. What is the challenge with that? Like, how do you write music to allow for this build up to where an action happens and then it doesn't, and it kind of, becomes more subtle and becomes more calm? Like, how do you go through the transition?
Yeah, so I want to clarify. When you're talking about the transition, you're talking about in a player-controlled environment transition, not a cutscene, right?
Yeah. Player-controlled, correct.
Okay.
Because I feel like cutscenes probably is more like movie, where you would like, okay, I know this music can be playing, and then this cutscene's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking more of like a player-controlled situation where the player enters an area, and they're like, I got to get out of this area. Yeah, a game state, correct. Yeah,
game state. so the cool thing about this is something that I specialize in, which is dynamic music, which is it's based off of the player's input, but it's also based off environmental inputs, and those are game states and things where you're maybe in a different area and the music transitions from there, or you're going into combat and the music transitions from there to being low grade. I've done this in many different forms. I've been getting more acclimated and efficient with it the past, would say 5 or so years, and I've been using different middleware from Wise to I started on Fmod Designer, then Fmod Studio, then Wise, and then moved into Elias, and then now I'm doing it out of any middleware. Now I'm just doing it mostly in Engine with different developers, because the basic things that I need to kind of get done are solid for what they need to get done for independent game projects and things that I want to kind of control. And so the way that I conquer these transitions is I have to understand what the game state focus is. And the cool thing about me being, I'm not just a video game composer, I understand game design very well. I'm self-taught because of all the games I've played since a child. So with all the amount of games I've played since I was 6 years old, I have a really good amassed knowledge in terms of what the transitions should be, because I'm thinking like a player first and in the game design form, and then I'm able to write the music that I know I've seen over the years that have done it, and those that I haven't, I study. And so, as I haven't really worked at a game studio that would allow me to learn it the way that those studios would have the team to show you how, so a self-taught. So what I learned through the audio middleware is that those transitions happen typically with something called stingers, which are just small, like 10-second, 5-second cues. They're sometimes orchestral. They can be electronic. What I've learned and loved about it is that all those transitions happened in an orchestral form because that was popular starting when it was able to stream that type of audio since the 2000s. And Richard Jakes and Gary Scheinman and a couple other composers, those were the early pioneers who were doing it at the orchestral level for those type of things. I think and those were those type of transitions that were happening in orchestral form. But for me, I learned that you could do it in different genres, like I was like experimenting with. So I was thinking, I haven't heard a space transition form from combat to then exploratory, so I did that. I never released a video. I should probably do that too. But another video I was working on was I did a seamless transition for a 2D fighting game that was in a PlayStation 1 type of form, and so from the menu into combat, low level combat to mid level to high level, and then victory, and then back into a menu. I made it all one seamless game transition music format. It never changes, like the theme of what is going on. It's solid and fluid, and that was with Elias. So what I do is I'm trying to paraphrase it because actually there's a talk I'm going to release, I think in a couple of days, and I talk about this from when I worked on a Quest Like Pocket with Hunting with Hits, Temple Slaying Monsters in Harmony. And I gave this talk. And so just a generalized, the transitions happen based off of whatever game mechanic I'm thinking is going to perform. So with that one, I was talking about fighting games. The other one was space combat. With Quest Like Pocket, it was different biomes. And I just understand, I have to understand tempo. I have to understand something called a through composed form, which is a music terminology that there's music forms of A, B, A, and that's binary, and then ternary form. Then there's other forms of music, but the through compose allow different states for me. So I don't know if he did it and I didn't tell him, but a PlayStation game just got released today. And I wrote that in a through compose form. So if they were right to do it in different formats, for geometry battles, I think it's called on PS1, the intensity of however the intensity happens through the battle states, that music wouldn't intensify. So it's just mostly me thinking of what that game state is going to do and then writing accordingly to the mechanic that's going to happen for the player. And if I can anticipate that, then I'll know it needs to be intense here, it needs to be down there. But doing it in different music styles, I think has been something that's not really to explore too much, because everyone just kind of generalizes to the orchestral form, but there's so many cool other things that you can do acoustically or electronically or bossa nova or any other styles, and that's what I've been focused on.
Wow. Do you feel like that's something that just as it hasn't been explored because of composers not into the games like you are, maybe? Like, do you think like your background in games obviously has a big part in that, but do you think that I mean, if we look back at like music being composed, like it's just I think it takes a special person to have that background in gaming as well, right?
Absolutely, you're correct. What I've observed is that there's a lot of people who want to be game composers, but they don't study games. So and I always say it's like, well, you wanted to be a film composer, you'd study movies.
Yeah.
And I understand that games it's not as easy to study it at the level, whereas you watch the movie because it's in linear form, you really have to understand game design. And that means you have to learn something completely different outside of learning music and then learning how to write for games. Because even though you know music, and people who wanted to get into writing game music, it's most like you have a better chance of writing a normal track and just having it synced up to something of someone who doesn't understand it for those transitions of dynamic. But what they don't understand is that people like you will, and me especially, will appreciate it on a higher level because it's a part of the game design. It's not just something that's thrown in. And then our titles and our services and our passion and expertise and skill sets and everything and talents that we put in as video game composers get appreciated and valued higher because we're not just throwing it in as a loop. But it's a multi-level understanding of this. It's like you said, I understand games first. I love games. That's number one. My love and my passion for game is unprecedented. Number two, I understand games, which is another level. Number three, I studied them. Number four, I worked with them for a long time. And number five, I understand the culmination of other disciplines, including my own. I understand music. I understand music design, which is another level, right? I'm just writing chords and melodies and counterpoints, and that's great. But then if it doesn't fit the art with the story and have that emotional feeling, you're missing, you're dropping a lot of the ball. And our job is 50% of the experience, 50%, if not more. Some developers would argue. This is the stuff that makes you cry. This is the stuff that 40 years later, David Wise gets to still get on stage and play, aquatic ambience, and people are, in tears with their Tiffu box, like, on the re-ups because he understood it, he understands, and to that level of what that is, and that's why that longevity happens, why people still love the Streets of Rage soundtrack, because he understood what it's supposed to feel like for the vibe and things like that too. So it's the same type of science, but if you're not studying it at that multi-level, you're not even going to get halfway there. You might get a quarter of the way.
Well, and I think too, like, I know obviously there's different genres of movies and stuff, but if you don't really understand the different genres of games, I think that could be another trap as well, right? Because like writing for music for a fighting game, I would assume, would be way different than writing music for like an RPG, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to some of the fighting game music that they've done there, and I can tell my ears are so good. And mostly, I didn't realize how good my ears were. I was thinking, oh, they synced that. I mean, like they took a song, and I could tell they just wrote the song and they just threw it in there. They didn't even think about the design of how it would fit. And then when you get someone like Mick Gordon and Tom Salsa thinking on dynamic music design levels, it took it to another level. That's why it was received at the level that it was. That's why they like first-person shooter Doom, because they're thinking on these multi-level stats. And Olivier Derivière, when he's doing it for survival type games in first person, again, something that wasn't really done, and then figuring that out and getting it to that form. So it does take, but there are not that many names out there. I can name the 5 that do it at that level that I know, that I've at least I've studied in my own right too. There's 8 of them, I think, in total. But it's like you have to approach the project the way that the entire art form is going to receive it. You can't just You can't just write just because it's fun to write for. I think it's going to work. You're missing something.
Yeah. I love talking to you about this because it's just so like such an in-depth conversation. I love that so much. This is why I love having you on the show, because it's like stuff that I think about, but I'm like, am I crazy to think this? And then I hear you talking about it, I'm like, oh, that is awesome. That is like, you're just like next level, right? Like I feel like a child when I talk to you, which is awesome because it's like I absorb so much, but it's fun talking to you because just hearing your thought process around all this stuff is just, I love it so much. So
thank you.
Yeah,
It's good to be appreciated for the knowledge that I've amassed for, and I feel like a brainiac in my own world. And I honestly don't get to have these type of conversations with many, if any. And so it's really it's me just sitting with myself and my thoughts. So the fact that you enjoy it, I'm very grateful.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, this is like one of the other topics, is AI. So, so we talked a little bit about this before the show. It's weird to me now, like through different like programs. Like I'm sure like Adobe has some programs like this, but I know like Canva has programs and other things. It's like select what you can create music through AI. Select your genres that you'd like, and then you select some stuff, and then it spits out some notes, and it tries to sound like music, and you're like, hey, this doesn't feel real at all. How do you think AI will impact the music world, if it impacts music world? And we'll start there. What do you think some of the impact might be on the music world?
So I've been talking about this for some years. The first time I talked about it, it was about 4 years ago, and my thoughts were that it was going to be an assistant for composers, and I still believe that to a degree. The only problem is I haven't seen the tools in the way that I envision it to be, and the way that I broke this down. And I think the talks that I gave this year in October, was that I will think of a chord progression, and it will say, and I'll just write it, and then maybe I get stuck. Maybe I'm not. And it happens. Like, it's not writer's block necessarily. It's mostly me taking my time, and I'll get stuck in the moment of, okay, I have this chord, and it's like 10 minutes have gone by. At this point, I could call in the AI assistant and say, hey, I'm stuck here. I'm trying to achieve maybe this. I want it to sound like that. What chord do you suggest? And then it will say, we suggest these type of chords. And then it might go and like this composer or this musician used it in this song in this way. And I'll say, okay, yeah, that's good information. And then I'll say, okay, well, I like that chord. And then I can alter that if I like it, or I can keep it because it's what it was giving me. I haven't seen that type of assistant type of technology yet. I've talked about it before. So it's going to be up to the sample library companies to figure that out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm just going to give away the idea and someone else can be rich about it. Just know you heard it here twice. I said it 4 years ago. Right. I'm here 4 years later saying it again. I still haven't seen it. So that was where I believe it's going to be. Now, in the term of who is using it, that's going to be upon the game developers and how serious they are about their game. And I'm going to keep it simplified, as I said it before. If you want to make games for robots, go ahead, be my guest. Because until the AI has my heartaches and my heartbreaks, I'm writing music for humans. And I was hoping that you'd be creating games that humans could play too. If you have AI music in your game, it's kind of like the composer who didn't understand game music and is just writing it, and they're missing the mark. It's kind of almost the same. I hate to say it, even though one is human and not doing the homework, and the other one isn't human. It's just, well, here's the ball drop. The AI only knows how to do that because a human wrote it. So the AI learned from the human to take it different parts and put it together.
Yeah. I find it really interesting though, because like music wise, I haven't really dug into it from a music standpoint, right? Like the impact that AI has on music, but I have seen from is just content creation and like writing scripts and writing things like that. And to me, it seems like, because I'm in the same boat that you are in, I feel like AI could be used for a lot bigger things, right? Like things that we're not using it for, but it feels like the things that people latch onto, and I hate to say that, like, I don't hate to say this, but like, this doesn't sound awful, but it feels like it's the lazy stuff that people latch onto, like the easy, lazy stuff. I'm like, what I needed to do is to think beyond like my thought process, right? And like help me see where the holes are that I'm not seeing, right? And like help me think through how I could apply this in a manner that I didn't think of. But instead, everybody just latches on the easy solutions because it seems like, but maybe that's just because it's the easiest thing, and it's the easiest way to implement it, I guess.
It's going to take a certain type of brain to input what you want from it. And this comes with training. I'm not going to give away the secret here, but I have that. I'm not going to do it. But you're talking about something that I already do, and so when AI came out for that, my mind blew up because I'm thinking already on the level of past the other stuff. I knew about the roadblocks I was having. I knew about the things that I couldn't solve. I knew about how I felt with people who didn't know or dropped the ball for such stuff. The AI can fill in a massive gap in my life for. And so it's going to take a certain amount of thinking power and brain thoughts for you to get into what you want it to do. But if you don't think that way, you'll never be able to tap into that power. And trust me, it's unlimited.
And maybe that's the problem. Maybe because people don't think, like, because it just seems, it sounds awful to say this, but it really feels like people implement the easiest, simplest way to use AI. And it's just like, that is the most, like, first of all, the least creative way, right? Because like now you're taking away creativity from people that could be doing this.
That were doing that, yeah.
That are doing this, right? Yeah, exactly. And it's lazy. It just feels lazy. It just feels lazy and not real. Like you said, it feels like some real person didn't write it. Right. It feels soulless, right? So
yeah. And it's on every level. Yeah. It's like it goes from writing scripts. There are script writers in Hollywood. I don't know if they're out of jobs. Mm-hmm. There's what was it? There's copywriters and there's people who actually love to write, people who write for games in those things. There's the artist thing is a big deal for that stuff, and then music is another thing. So like I said, AI wants to have my heartaches and heartbreaks for that emotion, to be able to connect with someone, to have it. Hey, have at it. I don't want it. I don't want it. Have at it, please. Here you go.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever get. Well, not in my lifetime. I don't think I'll get to that point. So maybe I don't know. What are some of the technologies though that are in game audio that you are excited about, that you see either now or in the future?
Man, I'm glad I at least looked at one email last week, because I've kind of been peeling back from some of those things. But I did see that Cryware was able to get something. Just so you know, Cryware is one of the 10 audio middlewares in game audio. And don't ask me how I know. I'm a big geek, and I used to be the interactive audio special interest group chair. So I felt like it was my duty to at least know the 10, if not 5 or 7 of them. So yeah. But yeah, Cryware is the Japanese audio middleware company. They've been around for many years. They've been around a little before Wise, I would say, because I remember playing video games and seeing the logo. So before I even got into games and game audio, I remember that, and that was PS2 era. So that's how I know.
Okay.
And so they are able to get their software, their middleware, working on the Playdate. Do you know what the Playdate is?
Oh yeah.
And I think that's really cool for developers that are making some games on there, because it's going to allow for dynamic music to be implemented in that form on there as well. Yeah. So someone who had shipped dynamic music on the Ouya, I believe one of the only video game composers that ever did that for a game. That's pretty cool, I think. And so that's a good step. And I think other software developers that work in audio middleware should be working with other software developers that make audio middleware to create a universal file that works together, like something called MIDI that was exempted, to be able to work with other engines of all that developers use if they can do it, especially and be pushing that forward. I'm just saying. Couldn't get the initiative out the other way. Got to use it here. Somebody's going to hear it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, I suppose that makes it a little bit more difficult with, I mean, because you just think about like all the different media out there. I do a lot of like video, right? And like, if I, have to try to translate or take a video and from one format to another, like that's not fun. I hate it.
No, you got to put it in Handbrake and then take that out and then maybe have it on some upload side that can convert it to something else. And no, MP4.h.t64 MOV is thankfully it's working in Final Cut. Thankfully it's working in DaVinci. Thankfully it's working in VideoPad or Adobe Premiere or whatever you're using, or Vegas.
Yeah.
Hopefully not. You could tell I do video editing too, right?
Yeah,
not just a video game composer here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's awesome. Well, Chase, it was really awesome having you on the show. I mean, I love having this conversation, and of course, I'll have to have you back on the show and talk more about 2025 for you, because 2024 was a big year for you, and I can see 2025 being just as big of a year for you. Where can people follow you and find your music and check out all your work that you've done?
Yes. Thank you for having me back. I love talking with you. Thank you for the questions. It's really good just having this dialogue and sharing some of the knowledge and these anecdotes and things. I really appreciate it. If you are looking to hear my work, you can go to Chase Bethea, B as in boy, E as in Eric, T as in Tom, H as in Harry, E as in Eric, A as in Apple.com. And I am going to say here, I am not going to be on Spotify next year here forward. Oh. They are thieves.
Okay.
And so whatever catalog is there, if I don't have it removed, enjoy it. You can officially support and hear my work on Bandcamp. That's chasebethea.bandcamp.com. Or the other platforms which seem to be okay right now, which is Apple. Stream it on Tidal. Tidal has a higher fidelity quality that you can hear. On YouTube, it's definitely gonna be on there because I know everyone's got YouTube. But so first place, Bandcamp, YouTube, Tidal, Apple Music, Amazon, and the other maybe streaming platforms like Deezer and Tencent, whatever. But Spotify, we're done. I will be making that announcement about why next year. Besides them being thieves.
Okay. Yeah.
I had to let them know, Roger, because we gotta speak up about this.
No, I don't blame you. I mean, if maybe that's the topic that we could have you on later on after you make your official announcement. Oh, this is the unofficial annountment here. I'd say.
Why when you make your official announcement, stealing from people when they make $94 billion?
Yeah, that's right. Not
my work.
Listeners, I'll put links in the show notes, not to Spotify, to everything else that you mentioned in the show notes, so that people can listen to your music and check you out. Chase, thank you so much for joining me. I every time I have you on the show, I know this is only the second time, but every time it just feels like it's just such a fun conversation. And and I've said this before, you are like one of those people that when I talk to, I'm just like, wow, I feel like a child and a sponge, and I can just soak up all this information from you, because you just know so much, but you're so like humble about it too, which is so nice to like chat to you. Like I love chatting with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm very happy to share and talk with you too.
Listeners, thanks for giving us a listen. If you like what you hear, leave us a review. We want to hear what you have to say about the show. Until next week, everyone, stay safe and game on. Bye.